Character, name, Elena Morales, age, 29, part 1, you'll never amount to anything. My brother's voice cut through the clatter of dishes and laughter like a knife, sharp and cold. I sat frozen at the dinner table, the room spinning from the weight of his words. Everyone else laughed, some politely, others cruelly, like they'd all been waiting for this moment to remind me where I belonged. The Morales family had never been kind to me. As the youngest daughter, born into poverty in a cramped, aging apartment on the wrong side of the city, I was always the target, the failure, the disappointment. My parents worked themselves ragged cleaning offices and waiting tables, their tired eyes full of worry and silent hopes for better days. But better days never came for me, not while I was still living under their roof. School was a battlefield where classmates sneered at my worn shoes and second-hand clothes. Teachers called me lazy or a lost cause. And at home, my brother Victor's barbs cut deeper than any. "I'm the one who got out," he'd say, flashing his college ID like a trophy, "while you're still stuck here." His words echoed in my mind the night I packed a single bag and left. I was 21, broke, and barely holding on to a fragile hope that maybe, just maybe, I could prove them all wrong. The city was cruel. Jobs I could get paid pennies for barely covered the rent of a room no bigger than a closet. I cleaned floors at night, studied accounting by day in a community college that smelled of mildew and missed opportunities. I worked until my hands bled and my eyes blurred. Every rejection letter from internships felt like another nail in the coffin of my dreams. One day, after yet another no-show call for a job interview, my last chance, I sat on a park bench, the cold biting through my thin jacket. My stomach grumbled, empty and aching. The sun dipped behind grey clouds as tears spilled down my cheeks, the bitter taste of defeat settling deep. "Why even try?" a voice whispered in my head. "You're just a Morales. You'll never be more." But somewhere, a stubborn flame refused to die. I made a promise to myself that night. I would claw my way out, no matter the cost. Months blurred into years. I poured every ounce of energy into my studies, aced every exam, and took unpaid internships just to learn the ropes. Eventually, I landed a junior accountant role at a small firm, the first real break I'd ever had. The pay was meager and the hours brutal, but I was determined. I worked late nights, memorized financial codes, and taught myself everything I could. Slowly, I started to build a reputation. But the real test came when the firm faced a critical audit. Mistakes were everywhere, and the partners were desperate to shift blame. One afternoon, my manager called me into the office, his face tight. "Elena, there's been an error in the report. You're responsible," he said coldly. I felt the blood drain from my face. "No, I double-checked everything. It's not my fault," I argued, panic rising. He shook his head. "You'll have to take the fall. The company can't afford to lose the client." I left the office that day feeling broken and betrayed. It was a betrayal sharper than any from my family. I wanted to scream, to fight, but the weight of injustice crushed me. For days, I drifted through a haze of despair, cold nights curled up in my tiny apartment, hunger gnawing, a silence so loud it drowned out my thoughts. But then an idea sparked. If no one believed in me, I had to believe in myself. Harder than ever. I began networking in secret, reaching out to small businesses, offering freelance accounting services. Word spread slowly, but I got my first paying client. Each new contract was a step away from the past, a push towards a future only I could create. One morning, nearly 2 years after that devastating audit, I received a call. The CEO of a promising tech startup wanted to meet. They had heard about my work and wanted to discuss a partnership. As I walked into their sleek boardroom, the memories of that Thanksgiving dinner flashed through my mind. And then, the CEO stood, smiled, and said, "Elena, welcome aboard as our new partner." Part 2. The moment the CEO's words hung in the air, a strange mix of disbelief and triumph surged through me. Partner, not just employee or intern. Partner. The title felt heavy with promise, a weight I was ready to carry after years of scraping by. But even as I shook hands and smiled, I knew the battle wasn't over. Success would bring its own challenges, especially when your past looks nothing like your present. Back at the firm, word of my promotion spread fast. I got calls, emails, messages from people I hadn't heard from in years. Some offering congratulations, others trying to reconnect for reasons that felt selfish. My brother Victor was one of them. The same brother who once mocked me openly, now sending texts with emojis and vague compliments. I stared at my phone, heart pounding. Should I answer? I didn't know if I wanted to face him again. His last words still echoed in my mind. You'll never amount to anything. One evening, after a long day of meetings, I gave in and called him back. Why now? I asked, voice steady but guarded. There was a pause on the other end. I was wrong, Elena, he admitted quietly. I'm proud of you. I didn't know whether to believe him. Pride doesn't erase years of pain, Victor, I said. I just want to make amends, he said. For a moment, I wanted to let him in, to have the family I'd always wished for, but trust wasn't something I could give lightly anymore. Let's take it slow, I said finally. We ended the call, both uneasy but hopeful. Work became a refuge and a battleground. Managing new clients, overseeing projects, and helping to grow the startup demanded everything I had. But the sting of betrayal from the old firm still lingered. One afternoon, a familiar face appeared in the lobby. My old manager, the one who'd thrown me under the bus, walked in with a smug smile. He hadn't expected to see me leading a thriving company. Look at you, he sneered. From cleaning floors to fancy offices? I met his gaze steadily. I'm still the same person, I said quietly. Only now I have the power to choose who I work with. His smirk faded. He turned and left without another word. That moment was cathartic. I realized that my success wasn't just about money or status. It was about reclaiming my dignity. Yet, late at night, when the city's glow faded behind my office windows, the loneliness crept back. I remembered cold apartments, missed meals, and whispered doubts. I understood that success didn't erase scars. It simply gave me a new skin to wear over them. A few months later, my family invited me to Thanksgiving dinner, the same table where I'd been mocked. I hesitated. Would I be able to face them? Would they be sincere? On the day, I showed up dressed in a simple but elegant dress. They looked at me differently, a mix of awe and unease. My mother's eyes filled with tears. My father was silent. Victor offered a tentative smile. We ate in quiet, the tension palpable. At one point, my mother reached out and took my hand. I'm sorry, Elena, she whispered. We never believed in you enough. I squeezed her hand. Neither did I, but I believe in me now. That night, I realized that forgiveness wasn't about forgetting. It was about choosing peace. As I walked home, the cold air bit at my skin, but inside, I felt warmth. A new chapter was beginning. Part 3. The weeks after Thanksgiving brought a strange calm, but also new challenges I hadn't anticipated. Success had a price, one paid not only in hours and stress, but in emotional currency. The startup was growing faster than expected. My days stretched endlessly. Meetings, negotiations, mentoring junior staff. I was proud, but exhausted. I kept thinking about the old me, the girl hunched over textbooks at night, trembling in cold apartments, wondering if the next meal was guaranteed. Those memories made me grit my teeth through the toughest moments. But the past wasn't done with me yet. One evening, as I was leaving the office late, I found a familiar figure waiting outside. It was Sarah, my closest friend growing up, the one who had quietly slipped away when things got hard. She looked nervous, hesitant. Elena, she said softly, I heard about what you've done. I'm proud of you. I studied her face. The years had changed her, but the distance between us felt like a chasm. I was hurt when you disappeared, I admitted. I needed you back then. I know, she whispered. I was scared, ashamed. I didn't want to drag you down. We stood in silence, the city noises fading around us. I'm sorry, she said finally. I forgive you, I replied, surprising both of us. Rebuilding bridges was never easy, but forgiveness was the first step toward healing. Still, the shadows of betrayal lingered. At work, pressure mounted. A rival firm tried to poach key clients. Rumors spread that I was vulnerable, that my past mistakes would catch up. The whispers stung, but I refused to crumble. One night, alone in my office, I stared at the skyline, millions of lights twinkling like stars. My phone buzzed. A message from Victor. Can we talk? I want to support you. I typed back, hesitant but hopeful. The next day we met at a small cafe. For hours we talked. About childhood, regrets, dreams. Victor apologized for his cruelty, and I shared my fears. It was the first real conversation we'd had in years. "Maybe we can rebuild this," he said. I nodded, cautiously optimistic. Still, not everyone was ready to accept my success. Some old acquaintances tried to drag me back, their jealousy thinly veiled. One afternoon, a former classmate confronted me. "You think you're better than us now?" she spat. I looked her in the eye. "No," I said firmly. "I'm just someone who refused to give up." That moment, I understood my power, not just as a businesswoman, but as a survivor. Every insult, every betrayal had forged me. I was no longer the girl they pitied. I was the woman who made her own destiny, and the journey was far from over. Part 4. The following months tested me in ways I hadn't imagined. As the company grew, so did the stakes. Board meetings became battlegrounds, filled with power plays, veiled threats, and alliances formed in whispers. I was no longer just Elena, the girl who once feared eviction and hunger. I was Elena Morales, CEO and founder, navigating a world where trust was scarce and every smile might hide a dagger. One particularly brutal day, my phone rang with news that shook me. A scandal was brewing. An ex-employee accused my company of unethical practices. The press was circling, hungry for blood. I felt the old panic rise, that familiar cold grip of fear and helplessness. Memories flooded back, nights spent freezing in a shelter, meals missed, doors slammed in my face. I clenched my fists. "No," I whispered. "Not now. Not when I'm this close." The next 72 hours became a whirlwind. I worked non-stop, assembling evidence, talking to lawyers, meeting with key staff. Sleep was a distant memory. But amidst the chaos, I discovered something unexpected: the strength of my team. They rallied behind me, their faith a lifeline. One night, exhausted, I sat alone in my office, the city's lights blurred through the window. My phone buzzed again, a message from my mother. "We believe in you, Elena, always." Tears stung my eyes. The woman who once doubted me now stood beside me. I realized that healing wasn't just about business success. It was about reclaiming family, trust, and self-worth. The scandal passed, but it left scars and lessons. I vowed never to let fear dictate my life. Instead, I channeled every challenge into fuel for the fire burning inside me. Then came an invitation that stunned me. A gala celebrating women leaders in tech. Among the guests were some of the very billionaires I'd once only dreamed of meeting. Walking into that grand hall, I felt a mixture of pride and disbelief. The whispers stopped as eyes turned toward me. A man approached, one of the industry's most influential figures. "Miss Morales, I've followed your journey. Your resilience is inspiring," he said, shaking my hand. I smiled, feeling a sense of belonging I'd never known. Yet, amidst the glamour, a familiar face appeared. My old boss, the one who fired me unjustly. His expression was unreadable. When our eyes met, I saw a flicker of regret, but I didn't need to say a word. My presence spoke volumes. That night, as I stood among titans, I felt the full weight of my journey. From the depths of despair to the pinnacle of success, every step had shaped me. And now, I was ready for what came next. Part 5. The gala's glow faded, but its impact lingered like embers in my soul. For years, I'd chased a dream born from pain, fueled by rejection and betrayal. Now, standing among the world's most powerful, I understood something profound. Success wasn't just about wealth or influence. It was about owning my story, scars and all. In the weeks that followed, life moved fast. My company launched a groundbreaking product, drawing global attention. Investors flocked, doors opened. Yet, even with all the accolades, I felt a quiet pull back to where it all began. One afternoon, I drove to my childhood neighborhood. The streets were familiar but changed. Some buildings crumbled, others replaced by new shops. I stopped in front of the old apartment building where I'd lived, cold and hungry, dreaming of a better life. The door was locked, paint peeling. I ran my hand over the faded bricks, memories flooding back, the cold nights, the hunger pangs, the whispered prayers for a miracle. Tears slipped down my cheeks, but this time, they weren't tears of pain. They were tears of triumph. As I stood there, my phone buzzed. A message from Victor. "Let's build something together, not just family, but a future." I smiled, heart full. I knew the road ahead wouldn't be perfect. There would be struggles, setbacks, and moments of doubt. But I was ready, Because now I had something no hardship could take away: the power to choose who I am, not defined by the failures of my past, but by the strength I found in rising above them. Later that evening, I sat by my office window, city lights shimmering like stars. I whispered to myself, I am not my failures, I am my victories. And with that, a new chapter began.